Hello everyone, and welcome to this Advective weather video where we are going to be covering an extremely dangerous situation that's currently unfolding for Australia. Cyclone Ilsa is about to make landfall in Australia here, currently a Category 4 by the Joint Typhoon Warning Center on the Saffir-Simpson scale, with winds of 240 kilometers per hour. It's a Category 5 on the Bureau of Meteorology scale, with winds of 215 kilometers per hour. 240 kilometers per hour is in 1 minute sustained winds, 215 is in 10 minute sustained winds. So that's what we're looking at right now. You can see the storm on satellite imagery here with a robust eye there as it's moving towards land. It has weakened a little bit from its peak intensity of 155 miles per hour, or 135 knots. However, it is now coming down from that, but is still rather strong. It is still a major cyclone, a Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, a Category 5 on the Australian scale. This is still extremely dangerous and will be bringing treacherous impacts to those that are in its path. The storm will be particularly destructive to the immediate landfall area, which is impacted by the core, and strong winds and storm surge are going to be the main threats along coastal Australia. However, heavy rainfall is also going to be a threat along the coast and well inland as well. Let's talk about the weather setup now. You can see there severe tropical cyclone Ilsa there about to make landfall in short order within the next 3 hours or so. Ilsa is slowly weakening at this time, and as soon as it makes landfall, more rapid weakening is expected. Ilsa is being steered by a trough that has picked it up, and the storm will make a left turn after it moves inland, moving towards central Australia. Stay tuned to local officials and pay attention to alerts and instructions for things like evacuations, safety protocols, things of that nature, and ways to stay safe during cleanup after this storm. Let's talk about the weather setup in a bit more detail now. Here is the storm, very favorable sea surface temperatures. Again, you need that yellow, 26 degrees Celsius, in order to be favorable for strengthening. This has sea surface temperatures of 30-31 degrees Celsius over it right now. However, again, it's going to be making landfall shortly, but conditions up to landfall looking relatively good. When it comes to wind shear is decent. You'll notice there are 15 to 20 knots of wind shear over the storm, so not great, but not awful either. Rather solid there in terms of wind shear, but again, this thing's about to make landfall, and that's going to make all of this irrelevant. Finally, water vapor again, moist air. Not much dry air to speak of with the storm. However, again, this is going to be somewhat irrelevant after the storm does hit land and move inland within the next hour or two. Let's talk about the official forecast there. Again, you can see this is a Category 5 storm according to the Bureau of Meteorology, and it will maintain some strength well inland there. So it'll be a Category 4 after making landfall here around 3 a.m. And then by 9 a.m., it'll be a Category 3 as it moves towards Telfer. And then after it moves past there near Paringar, it'll be a Category 2 before becoming a low-pressure system as it heads towards places like Kirkura. Let's talk about the Joint Typhoon Warning Center's forecast. Again, 130 knots at this time. They're expecting shortly after landfall here, so this is going to be in about 3 hours' time. Once it moves inland, that it's going to be around 125 knots there, instead of the 130 that it's currently at, before weakening rather quickly. And by the time we get to the morning hours of the 6th, or not the 6th, the 15th, at 6Z UTC, that's when we're expecting this to weaken down to a tropical depression before dying off. Let's talk about the weather models now. You'll notice there rather clearly that the intensity is expected to drop off quickly. Conditions also aren't all that useful to look at either because the storm again is moving inland. The only good news is that the mid-level relative humidity isn't that high, so we aren't going to be seeing ridiculous amounts of rain with this storm. It's also not moving that slowly, again facilitating that we're not going to see a ridiculous amount of rain with this storm. Let's talk about the track forecast confidence. You can see there's high confidence now that this is going to make a left turn rather quickly after making landfall, and then from there it's just going to move well inland through central Australia, and by the time we do move into out of the Western Australian territory there towards central Australia, that's where we're going to see heavy rainfall being the big threat. Strong winds and storm surge obviously not so much. We're not along the coast and the storm will have weakened. Let's talk about rainfall. This is where high confidence is in terms of rainfall. You'll notice high confidence along the coast that most of these areas here in the darker purples are going to get at least 125, maybe even 150 more millimeters of rain. As we move inland, you'll notice there are more widespread concerns of rainfall there, especially in central and southern Australia, with numerous areas getting 15 to 45, maybe even 50 millimeters of rain here according to this ensemble. As we head towards a more deterministic look at things, this is kind of just telling you what the maximum rainfall is going to look like, but don't pay attention to exactly where it could be. These swaths could change. This is just giving you what the maximum magnitude is going to be. So some areas are going to get over 150, maybe even 175 millimeters of additional rainfall as this storm moves inland. And again, there in southern Australia, you can see the high amounts of rainfall expected, and again, maximum rainfall totals around 125 millimeters, the current expectation there. Let's talk about a rainfall swath now from the HWRF. We were looking at winds before with this model, but now we're going to take a look at rainfall because that's going to quickly transition to the final threat. We already know how the winds are looking and what's going to happen with those. So here's the rainfall. You'll notice there along the coast an additional 8 to 16 inches of rain currently expected. That is quite a bit of rainfall there. For these areas to expect. That's going to be well over 200 more millimeters of rain for numerous areas there along coastal Australia. And then again, as we move inland, you can see that rain there tapering off just a bit. As we take a look at simulated satellite, this looks about right. The eye here is kind of trying to come out, although it's collapsed a little bit as this has moved towards land. As soon as this moves inland, its structure will rapidly collapse as it moves towards central Australia, and this will no longer be something that we really have to worry about by the time we do move into the day 4, day 5 time frame. All right, let's talk about what you can do. When a storm threatens, if you're a bit inland from this and you're not getting impacted already, do your best to make last-minute preparations. Protect your home, cover windows, secure doors, things like that. Make sure you know your sheltering options. Have a to-go bag, things like that. If you're told to evacuate and you still can, you need to evacuate. And help your neighbors as well, especially the elderly. Make sure they're informed about this and that they are capable of weathering the storm. Let's talk about what to do during the storm. A lot of you here are about to be impacted directly by Ilsa. Make sure that you're in your safe place from water and wind. If you're along the coast, that means highest level. Especially if you are on the eastern side of the storm's core. And again, you want to stay in that safe place from water and wind. Lowest level if it's a wind threat for you, highest level if it's a water threat. Have a way to get weather alerts and forecast updates. You can go to the Bureau of Meteorology website. There are also some places covering this live. You can also keep in mind that impacts will be felt far from the coast, and listen to local officials and avoid travel unless ordered to evacuate. What do you do after the storm? After the storm moves through, only return if you're told to if you've evacuated. Make sure to remain vigilant as hazards may remain. Heat, down power lines, floodwaters, and more possible. Cleanup safety is definitely something to make sure that you're doing. Don't push yourself and check in on neighbors. Only use generators outdoors 20 plus feet away from your home, and prepare for the likelihood that help and communications may not immediately be available. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. Cyclone Ilsa is making landfall imminently here. We wish for the health and safety of all of those in the path of this storm. Be sure to like this video if you thought it was useful, and subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications as we post more updates on weather across the world. You can also join our Discord server in order to talk to myself and the rest of the Advective weather team on what's currently going on across the world in weather. And be sure to leave a comment if you have any questions, comments, or concerns there down below, so that way we can answer your questions exactly and make sure that you're as safe as you can be during this storm. Thanks again for watching. We hope to see you in the next video.